Hello and welcome back to From the BL End, the Burnley podcast. This is the preview podcast for the Sunderland match, but that's a long way off, isn't it? Monday night. We've got a lot to talk about in the transfer market, though, and that'll be our focus for this pod. And with me for it is Darren Bentley and Chris Bowden. How are you doing, chaps? All good?
Good, yeah, you?
Looking forward to a blank weekend.
Yeah, a long weekend ahead. So before we get the chance to sort of watch other teams and, cheer on opponents of our relegation rivals and so on, there has been quite a bit going on in the transfer market. First of all, an incoming, James Ward-Prowse, coming in on loan till the end of the season from West Ham United. Best remembered, really, for his time at Southampton. Chris, decent addition, waste of time? What do you make of it?
I certainly don't think it's a waste of time. I mean, time will tell whether it's a decent addition. But, you're talking about a recent England international, one of the best, dead ball masters in the Premier League, in the history of the Premier League. He's not played for a good while. He's had his fallouts with Nuno Espirito de Santo at Forest, and just his luck that Nuno pitched up at Wolves shortly after, and
AKA Baldy.
yeah, that's how the story goes. He's got qualities. It's how he fits into. Do Burnley adapt their current system to fit him in, or is he going to be one of these? He's going to have to, sit on the bench for a period and work his way into the side. But he does have quality. Saying to you off camera, I saw his Premier League debut, 2012, which was J-Rod's Premier League debut when he signed for Southampton. He played with Danny Fox at Manchester City, and they give City a real scare on the day. It lost 3-2, but it was one of those that it turned up on the team sheet. It was like, who's this fella like? And sort of kept an eye on him ever since. He grasps. He's got that bit of quality. He's technically proficient, but that's him. At the minute, I quite like this. It's almost like a three, but Walker's happy playing further up the pitch. You can get Humphrey coming out playing the left side more comfortable really than Esteve. It allows Perez to come inside, and he had a bit of an influence in Foster's goal against Spurs at the weekend. So it's whether we go to those. Do we want those central three again, or are we going to stick with Big Les and Florentino?
I mean, I don't think there's much doubt about his abilities, and he's only 31, so he's not over the hill at all. But he's had a season where he's basically hasn't played at all this season, really. I think September was the last time he'd been involved in the squad up until his recent appearance on the bench. So he's not match fit at all, really, is he? I mean, I'm sure he's kept himself in shape, but that match sharpness won't be there. But we're hoping, obviously, he can hit the ground running if he comes straight into the side. What do you think, Daz? Is he somebody we would shuffle the pack to accommodate, or is he going to have to work his way into the side, given that we're unbeaten in 4?
Yeah, I mean, decent run run in that respect, but I don't see why we would bring his vast experience in and sit him on the bench. For me, he's out on the pitch. We've cried for a while about bringing creativity into the team, and he adds creativity to the team, there's no doubt about it. Maybe more from dead balls than from open play, because from past memory when he did play in his latter years, he wasn't very influential on games, but he can put a ball wherever you want it. So from corners and set pieces, he's going to be influential, I think. And it's a mark of where we are, really, that he's a sort of player we can attract. It's weird that a fellow relegation rival's happy to let one of their players come to us. I know he's not playing, but they are effectively helping us out. That's probably a mark of how poor we've been and how cut adrift we are. But he's a welcome addition to the squad. We said all along, that Gary Hunt, I think, mentioned it on a recent pod, we don't want 19-year-old wingers and 18-year-old centre-backs from Germany. We want experience in this side and people who can lead. And along with Kyle Walker, he seems to me as a bit of a leader. People look up to him in the squad. Don't think he'll have any problems settling in. Culture-wise, he's one of us, isn't he? So I think it'll be a reasonable move for the lad. I notice there's nothing beyond the loan at the end of the season, but you never know. If he likes what he sees for the next 6 months, he might well hang around. And if he's in the Championship with us, you'd like to think he's a real asset.
Yeah, I think he's won free kick goal away from David Beckham's record for the most goals
That's,
from free kicks. Is that
All
right?
right.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't had a real free kick specialist since, Scott Twine's sort of brief flirtations with that role, have we, Chris? I mean, it does give you something different, doesn't it, having that?
It's you look back to Defoe got that. I mean, you still watch the goal at Old Trafford and
Yeah.
pinch yourself that a Burnley player did that. But Twine it was like a penalty almost, wasn't it? When Twine got a free kick on the edge of the area, I was behind the goal for the West Brom game when he placed the ball, and I think the whole ground sensed he was going to score. It was an absolutely sensational goal, and he's done it on a regular basis since. But as you say, if you've got that, all people are talking about this season is the sort of the effect on of set plays in the Premier League. People looking more at sort of Declan Rice swinging in, some of these vicious deliveries for the Arsenal centre backs to go and rugby tackle a goalkeeper out of the way, and when his mate heads it in or something like that seems to be the case. But yeah, if you can throw that into the mix, it's a massive lift. If you see Burnley, struggling to sort of create clear cut stuff. But see if you get Marcus Edwards gets nicked on the edge of the box, you're in business, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that I was talking to somebody recently about this feeling after Arsenal had a lot of success from corners, especially early in the season, didn't they? And everybody started wanting to replicate what they were doing, and there was all this talk about how set pieces, as you say, a big factor in the game again. My argument was Declan Rice is just really, really good at delivering them balls, isn't he? You can't replicate that unless you've got somebody who's as good as Declan Rice at doing that, because he knocks it right into the exact right spot every time, and he's unbelievable at doing that. And while the Premier League...
the funny thing is that I can always remember sitting at the Emirates behind Ceballos, and he was sort of like intimating that all Burnley do is this. And they were crying about anti-football and David Luiz at Chelsea, and Premier League's full of it, isn't it? You look at the scrums for the. I was watching the Arsenal Man U game at the weekend, and goalkeepers are getting zero protection all of a sudden. You go back to Dubravka's, at Newcastle, where it would have been soft to disallow it, but he's been impeded, shall we say, for the Guimaraes goal. They seem to be giving goalkeepers absolutely nothing this season.
But it's true, isn't it, Daz? I mean, going back to the point there was, if you've got somebody who can be pinpoint accurate with set pieces, suddenly you can be much more effective and more dangerous from them in ways that you hadn't seen previously. I mean, maybe Tuanzebe is really good at getting on the end of corners, but we just haven't been delivering them.
Well, we've seen Kyle Walker put a couple of great balls in this season for goals. So Kyle Walker delivery from the right's been terrific. Now, if Ward-Prowse can repeat those from dead balls, you've got height in the box. You've got Esteve, you've got Tuanzebe, you've got Breuer. Well, there's plenty of height in there. Is that all he is, though? That's the big concern, isn't it? Can he influence a game? He almost felt to me like a bit of a replacement for Josh Cullen, but you can't see James Ward-Prowse playing in a defensive holding midfield role. Surely James Ward-Prowse is someone you want damaging the opposition further up the pitch. So it'd be interesting to see where they do fit him in, whether they fit him in as a sort of a 10 or whether I don't know what they'll do. It's an interesting one. They'll play three centres and play him as a more advanced one. I don't know how they'll do it, but we'll find out probably on Monday, because I believe he'll probably start. I can't believe he won't start. We're in last chance saloon now. So, and I can't believe he'll be the last throw of the dice either. We've shipped a few out. I've no doubt we'll come on to that, but we're clearly creating a bit of income at the club, wage-wise, to bring other people in. I know there's this 25-man squad limit that we get to, but surely there's somebody else to come in, and surely it has to be a creative stroke striker.
If we're bringing in one more before Monday evening's deadline, which falls, around kick-off time, doesn't it, for Burnley's game at Sunderland, Where you looking? What position? You're suggesting there, Daz, as creative player or a forward player? Some people I've seen online talking about needing another centre half. I mean, obviously the list could go on infinitely, but if you're looking at one spot, go on, Chris, you start us off. If you're looking at one spot, where would you go?
It's like the chicken and the egg, isn't it? It's, do we need another creative player, or do we need someone to take chances on a more regular basis? I'd
The latter.
probably err on the latter. Yeah, unless you can sign that sort of hybrid wide player who could play centrally in the front line. I mean, there's a few names floating around, isn't there? Sort of suggestion that no harm in having a punt. It's highly unlikely, you'd have thought, but why not have a punt at a Raheem Sterling? I'm sure he's not so short of suitors at home and abroad. But if you're, you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle, do you? Sort of thing. It might be the sort of thing that gets him up and running for, the last 3-4 months. It might even kickstart him and get him on the fringes of the England squad again. For the
See,
summer.
I knew you were going to go there. Burnley could solve Raheem Sterling's World Cup
Why not?
dilemma.
Why not?
Yeah. I mean, that would literally be your only pitch that you could make to him, though, wouldn't it? If you were pitching it to him, you're not going to be able to compete with money or glamour or status. If Spurs are reported to be interested and European clubs, what you could say, you come here, you play every game between now and the end of the season. We'll give you every chance of making Thomas Tuchel's squad worth a shot.
Yeah, we'll give you a tenth of your wages that you were on at Chelsea.
Yeah. I mean, this is all completely hypothetical, but that is your selling point, isn't it? If he goes to Spurs, he'll have plenty of suitors in the Premier League, but most of those suitors in the Premier League are going to fit him in as a squad player, and he's going to end up with splinters in his arse again, like he has for the last 12 months. You could say to Burnley, we're going to play you every week. I still don't think it'd be enough, because I don't think we get anywhere near his wages. But the fact he's a free agent now does mean he's free to sort of negotiate his own deals, and he won't be short of a few bob. So it's got to be worth it all.
He's terminated his contract by mutual consent, which means, I think he had another year after this, didn't he? It means this season at least will have been paid off for him.
Yeah.
You would think.
Worth a call. I can't believe for a second he would think Burnley are anywhere near the top of his wish list. But it just depends on the other calls and what they're offering him in terms of playing time and opportunities. It's got worth a punch.
We're talking about, again, we mentioned the 25. You mentioned the 25-man squad thing, though, before, and Spurs have been slap bang on the limit, and the Tell that came on against us at the weekend isn't in the Champions League squad, for example. So does he come in and he doesn't play Champions League football for Spurs, which, again, that would be a big bonus for him if he wants to. You want to go to Spurs to play in the Champions League, wouldn't you? So it's one of those, and he might fancy him. He's never struck me as a lad who'd want to go abroad. I don't know whether he'd. He's had a couple of stints. He's quite clearly a London lad. He's from the Wembley area, isn't he? But he's had a couple of stints in the Northwest. His formative, his best footballing years have been in the Northwest. So I don't know. You just never know. Kyle Walker might be able to have a little bit of a word in his ear and say, "Let's get the band back together."
I was just going to say, I'm glad you said Kyle Walker, because I was just scratching my head thinking, these kind of crazy ones, they come off when there's a personal connection, like Stan having worked at Crystal Palace with Ian Wright. It's those like little things that let them happen, isn't it? And we saw that with other signings, I think, didn't we?
I think the other thing to say here is we're A, we're running out of time, but B, there's probably not a lot of options in attack. I tell you, when the lad at Wolves is going for 50 million quid, there's a dearth of strikers, because he isn't worth half that money. But there's a premium on strikers
against us.
I remember Steve Cottrell saying back in the day that football's cyclical, and there's a shortage comes around, and it's cyclical, and it's fullbacks or it's centre backs or it's midfielders, and it appears at the moment that strikers, there's a real dearth of them. So guess what? Price goes through the roof, and Strand Larsen's 50 million quid, which is ridiculous money for anybody to pay. But that's where we are. And because of that, our shopping list is probably very small. But I agree with Chris, that's what we need. We need somebody who can score goals. Centre-backs, I get the argument for a centre-back, but centre-backs aren't going to keep us in the Premier League. The only thing that's going to keep us in the Premier League is scoring goals, because we can't keep them out at the back end. And even if we do keep them out at the back end, we don't score enough. So we have to score more goals. And Fleming's injured. We don't know when he's back, but Fleming isn't probably going to score us another 10. Foster, you wouldn't hang your hat on any weekend. And Breuer is increasingly looking like a bit of a busted flush. So it has to be.
It's got to be Raheem. We've got to do it.
Even if you went down the route of, I mean, like, see, Fulham are bringing Oscar Bob in for the thick end of 30 million. You know, I mean, again, you talk about 50 million for Strand Larsen. You know, nearly 30 million quid for a lad who's had a few appearances here and there for City. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you look through. I mean, City have. I think Young Heskey's gone out, hasn't he? I don't know if there's someone similar within City, United, Liverpool's sort of group that are knocking on the door that you could sort of say, come in, we'll give you the last 15 games or something like that, and see how you get on, sort of thing.
Yeah. There's nothing to lose, really, is there? You make these approaches, even if they're crazy like Sterling sounds to be, or like you say, going for a young emerging star who's knocking on the door. There's nothing lost by approaching, and there's nothing lost for those players for half a season, really, is there? I mean, Sterling's not giving up his career to come to Burnley if he comes for 4 or 5 months. He's using it to kickstart it, and then he can go where he wants in the summer if he does well.
Yeah, get himself fit again.
Yeah. Exactly. Right, that's decided. We're in for Sterling. Good. Right. In terms of those going out of the door, making room for a potential Raheem move is Jayden Bernal, who's on his way to, I need to refresh my mind where he's going, but he's going to Derby County on loan till the end of the season.
Blackburn Reserves, yeah.
I mean, he's a lad who just wasn't, who was getting barely a look in cup games, wasn't he? So, I mean, that one seems to make perfect sense, really, no?
Come on against, yeah.
And if you want to create another space in the squad, and it pains me to say it because we know he's been an absolute legend, but Barnes, ain't getting much game time.
No.
So there's a space there because you could always tell Barnes, get him on the coaching staff, free a space up, and bring someone in there. So there's ways and means of doing that.
Yeah.
So Bernal came on against Derby in the League Cup earlier this season. It was nice and positive, bright, and I'm sure that stuck in Mr. Eustace's mind that night. He's trying to wind Blackburn fans up further, isn't he, by signing Sammy Smodis from Ipswich Town. So they're having a go, aren't they, Derby? They could knock on the door of the playoffs, to be fair. So I think that'd be a really good loan for Bernal.
The managers often go with what they know. It's a safety valve, isn't it? They go with what they know rather than the gamble of someone you don't. That's common sense, really.
Yeah. So Bernal to Derby County. Manuel Benson, who was on a season-long loan to Swansea City, Swansea then asked to cut it short. He hasn't been featuring for them. They didn't want to keep him for the second half of the season. Burnley were initially refusing to do that. Now it seems to have relented, and obviously the agents have been doing their business as a permanent move. So then you can cancel the loan, bring him back, and sell him. And he's gone to Maccabi Haifa of the Israeli league. That's it. That's the end of the Manuel Benson Burnley story. There's no route back for him, really. I mean, we should sort of pause for a moment, really, and just reflect on what an extraordinary impact he had for a short spell of time, but an absolutely vital impact as well, Chris.
Yeah, I think in the sort of the few days before he signed, when it was becoming apparent that it was going to happen, his agent was sort of describing him as that sort of Gareth Bale type. And you thought, here we go. But you could sort of, that first season, you could see where he was coming from. But that ability to just shift inside from the right and just unleash an absolute glorious thunder bastard, not more so than that run. I think it was 4 successive, exact replica goals he scored, including the one at Ewood that so gloriously claimed the championship trophy, which doesn't count in Rovers fans' eyes because it's the second tier apparently. So no, because you'd never celebrate winning the league on your biggest rival's backyard, would you?
Unbelievable.
His candle burned brightly, but not for long. But I mean, those four identical goals in 4 games. It's kind of like modern folklore, isn't it? It'll always be there. Everyone will, for years and years, and generations of Burnley fans will talk about that. You know, for someone who made, you know, wasn't here for long, but what an impact.
Yeah, absolutely crucial to that promotion campaign. And my cousin's got a dog called Benson. Been a pet for longer than Manuel was featuring in our first team. But yeah, it's a shame it didn't last. But he looked. He never looked like he was going to make an impact in the Premier League, but fantastic at that level. And I think, you know, the Israeli league, like I know Chris off air, you were saying like, well, he's off to retire to the Israeli league. And I think it's one of them leagues. I remember when I used to work in Eastern Europe, there were a lot of players who went from like Hungary and Slovakia and so on. They'd go to the Belgian league or they'd go to the Israeli league. The same agents were operating across those two leagues. And I think the level's pretty similar. They would sort of interchange between the clubs from those two leagues quite a lot. So it's similar to what he was used to before he came to England, I think, really. And he's probably found his level there, you know.
That's it. Is that many injuries? I remember not long after he'd signed, I mean, he came on against Luton and was electric, and then we went to Watford and he got kicked off the park, and he seemed to be picking up calf injuries here, there, and everywhere, didn't he? And you suspect the Premier League would have been a step too much, but we never really found out.
No,
I've still to this day loved for company having you know, the club had dished out weighty extensions to their contracts that summer, and then basically banished the pair of them, didn't they, Zaroury and Benson? I'd love to have seen the pair just unleashed and let's see how they get on. And if it didn't work, we loved the socks off them. You know, it didn't matter. Instead, you end up with these questions.
Well, yeah, there's something as a fan, the sort of traditional view in football is that they'd earned that chance, you know, and let's have a look at them. And if it doesn't work after 3 or 4 games, swap them out for somebody else. But you'd think they deserved a chance to have a look. And you're right, Benson never got that chance, and it's a pity. But I think he's somebody who, as you've both indicated, will be remembered very fondly. You can see him in, you know, if in 7 or 8 years' time he comes back to do the half-time raffle or whatever, he'll get a good ripple of applause because just for that one moment.
On holiday that weekend.
Yeah. So good luck to Manuel Benson with Maccabi Haifa. And the other departure is probably the only one I would say that's in any way contentious, really, is Oliver Son going to Sparta Prague. I must admit, I was a bit surprised by this because that performance he put in against Millwall had a few of us sort of saying, you know, it might be worth a look back in the first team starting 11. And he is our main cover for Kyle Walker, with Connor Roberts still out injured, and that's been confirmed this week by Scott Parker as well. Are you surprised to see Son going out?
Yeah, very much so. As you intimated there is no cover now at right back. You know, clearly with Walker fit, he isn't getting game time because he's not going to drop Kyle Walker. So in that respect, it makes sense. But Kyle Walker pulls a calf next week, and we're then probably shifting Bashir Humphries to right back and shifting deck chairs on the Titanic a little bit. So, yeah, it did surprise me. I'm hoping it's just a case of getting some game time and he's back in the summer. Because, again, in the Championship, he looks to me like he'd be a real asset because you can't see Kyle Walker being with us in the Championship. So Oliver Son could end up being the first choice right back next year at Burnley. So, I was surprised to see him go out. He does leave us a little bit short in that position, but I'd rather we're short at right back than short up front.
Chris?
Again, it's one of those that, you know, Sparta Prague, you know, it's a famous old club, you know, in terms of the level. If we're thinking realistically, it might have made more sense for him to go out on loan to a Championship club and get acclimatised to the Championship in advance. But, I'm just disappointed. We've not seen Eleanor Christensen at Turf yet. Getting a bit concerned now.
But you're right. It is why go to the Czech League? Why send a player to the Czech League? If you're a Premier League club who might be playing in the Championship next year, why send a player to the Czech League?
It's an odd one. It is an odd one.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand. I haven't seen Parker's press conference today, whether he's explained the logic behind it at all, but it does seem an odd one to me.
He would say, good for him to get games.
Well, but as you said, he'll get games over here if he plays for a Championship side, or...
Yeah.
even nearer home, but it's an odd one, definitely.
It is an odd one. I do hope we see him back, because I think there's something. I hate that expression. There's a player in there, but I think there is a player in there. I think he's shown enough.
He's got that attacking. Like I said, when he arrived, he was sort of heralded as an attacking fullback. He'll get you goals and assists, and in his limited opportunity, like I say, he came on and impacted the game against Fulham, and he was terrific against Millwall. Yeah, I think he is. He looks a better right wing back than a right back, to be fair. I don't know whether that's whether that's I don't. Again, I see. I don't know if Prague play that system, and they want to keep him as a right wing back. I honestly don't know, but I'm glad to see there's no option on with that loan. It's just a loan, so because we want to see him back at Turf in the summer. Seems a good lad as well.
Yeah. Let's have a quick look at the Sunderland game before we wrap this up. Granit Xhaka, being absolutely fundamental to their success this season, is going to be out missing. That feels like a crucial factor. Daz, do you think that maybe edges things towards us a little bit?
I do. I mean, Sunderland's form's tailed off in recent weeks. They're back in the bottom half of the league now, after at one stage looking like that with Champions League contenders. So without Xhaka in midfield, they were a shambles by all accounts at West Ham. We've picked up a little bit of form. Is it 5 draws in our last 7 league games and 3 unbeaten, 4 if you count the cup? So we're on the upturn a little bit in that respect, but we've got to start turning the draws into wins, haven't we? We mentioned earlier on we're in the last chance saloon. We're drinking the last pint in the last chance saloon now, aren't we? So we have to go there and win the game just to give ourselves a bit of belief, because after that you got West Ham at home. If you win at Sunderland, West Ham at home becomes a massive game all of a sudden. But you've got to give yourself that chance. We've got to go there and win that game. Now, that isn't going to be easy because they've not lost at home. The only unbeaten Premier League side at home, I think. So that tells you something in itself. And we're not free scoring, so it'll be a bit of a slog, I'd imagine. Monday Night Football, so Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher will be ripping us to bits. Joy. Lots to look forward to there, aren't there?
I mean, let's look at it from this point of view, Chris. We've just drawn with Manchester United, Liverpool and Tottenham. And now we're going to play Sunderland. We shouldn't be fearing them.
There's got to be a semblance of confidence, hasn't there? Let's say you've put yourself out on the park with those 3 of the big 6, and you've come out with your chest puffed out in many respects. But I say Sunderland, I said as Dad said, the only unbeaten side of the Premier League. They tried to be a bit more adventurous at West Ham. He switched to like a 4-4-2 from his 4-3-3, and it went absolutely well. As Ryan Law might say, it was a calamity down there. But it was, they missed. Like I say, Xhaka. If you look at the stats, he's among the best in the Premier League at one of them very modern parlance. In line breaking passes. He pass. He's creative. He passes it forward. But they've also got Habib Diarra back from AFCON. He was on the bench at West Ham, so I think they expect him to come in for Xhaka, and he's been one of their players of the season as well, the Senegalese lad.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a hell of a job to go to get 3 points. Would be a mega result, but it's taking inspiration from down the years. We've not the worst record in the world there. And as Dad says, if we do, all of a sudden, West Ham won't know what's hit them if they come to Turf Moor. You know what I mean? And we all know, like I say, in the history of Burnley's time in the Premier League, if you ever wanted to play anyone at home in a game you needed to win, it'd either be Wolves or West Ham, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Raheem's sat in his little flat in Wembley. He's rubbing his hands listening to all this talk now, isn't he? Let's see what happens over the next few days. We will be back with a rapid reaction from the Sunderland game and then a full debrief. It's a long weekend before that. If we sign someone or something crazy happens in the transfer market, we might come back for an emergency pod, but we'll see about that. That depends on some weekend transfer activity. We'll see. But until then, thanks very much for joining us. Have a great weekend and up the Clarets.